afternoon, everyone. Thank you for having me here today. I'm really pleased to be talking at this virtual careers fair. So as Peter says, I'm going to start with a little overview of my role and my career story, and then talk a little bit more widely about why and, more importantly, how you might want to choose a career in STEM. And then I'll take any questions afterwards. So I'm going to start with my current role and then work backwards, which is maybe not the obvious way of doing it, but I think it's hopefully more interesting that way around. So as Peter says, I work at Teledyne e2v in Chelmsford. Teledyne e2v is a very large engineering company that works in a range of sectors, including space, healthcare, defence, and scientific research. I am the systems engineering lead for the RF power division in Chelmsford. So my work is mostly on high power microwave and X-ray systems that are used for a range of applications, predominantly medical and radiotherapy, specifically within that. So high energy X-ray generation to battle cancer and tumours. This technology is the same as is in your microwave oven at home, but much more powerful, and obviously has a very interesting. It's interesting to work on because of that. And as I say, there's also some other work in defence, security industry, and scientific research using the same technology, but medical and healthcare is the main thing for us. I absolutely love my work at e2v. It's brilliant. It's a great place to work. There's really great people. Have a really good team. The role is a lovely blend of technical, creative, and leadership work, which I'll come on to more in a minute. It's fun. It's exciting. Everything's different all the time. There's always new challenges, and so yeah, I'm really pleased to be working there and pleased to be talking to you today about that. As a systems engineer, I get to oversee the whole engineering process from concept through to production, which is fascinating. So I'm involved in determining the requirements at the very start of the project. What are we trying to do? How are we going to do it? Lead on the kind of overall design of the product or the system. So how's this going to work? What are all the bits? How are they going to come together? And kind of lead the team on that process, and then see things through all the way through the detailed design and the testing, and then, as I say, getting them into production and into manufacture, which is a whole challenge in and of itself. So really interesting. And although my background is as an electronic engineer and a software engineer, as a systems engineer, I have to be and get to be involved in all the disciplines. So electrical and electronics, software, mechanical design. Plus, of course, plenty of science and physics, which is really key when you're working in this kind of high energy applications, and that's fascinating, and I really enjoy that. And again, I'm really pleased to be talking about it today. Alongside my work, my day job at e2v, I'm a STEM ambassador and have been so for about 10 years now. And I'm also president of CSES, which is a registered charity in Essex that promotes STEM. And this includes lots of work with schools and with ARU, Anglia Ruskin University. Before I move on, I would just like to point out that Teledyne e2v's apprenticeship applications are open now until June. The deadline has just been extended to the 17th of June. It was the 4th, it's now the 17th of June. Please go on the website. Please do take a look if you're interested. If you engineering takes your fancy at all, do apply. Yeah, Chris, who's our apprenticeship manager, is absolutely great, and you'll really enjoy working with him if you do so. So yeah, I'd encourage you to take a look. Before I worked at e2v, I worked at Atkins as a consultant rail systems engineer, so quite different industry, and that was interesting in an entirely different way. I worked on some major programs there, including East-West Rail, so that's connecting the section I was working on connects Oxford to Cambridge, but ultimately it's Bristol all the way up to Norwich, I think is the plan. I worked on HS2 for a bit, where HS2 interfaces with the existing railway, and I also got to do a really interesting project looking at a proposed a bridge over the Thames, a pedestrian bridge, which involved a 150,000 row spreadsheet analysing all the traffic going up and down the river, all the boats going up and down, which was absolutely fascinating. Really interesting work, that. And then before Atkins, I worked at Leonardo down in Basildon, and this was my first kind of proper job, if you like. So I was there for nearly 10 years in total, including 4 years while I was at university doing summer placements. I was then on their graduate scheme for 2 years before then sort of working as a normal employee, if you like, for the next 4 years or so. While I was at Leonardo, I worked on, again, several major projects, really interesting, including thermal imaging systems and precision guidance systems. That's mostly defence work that I was doing, but I did end up working with the BBC at one point with their wildlife production team, their natural history unit based in Bristol, because they were using our camera, and you can see some images there. They were using our camera to capture wildlife photography in the night time, in the dark, for various of their flagship programs, and that was really fascinating. I started at Leonardo as a firmware engineer, so that's designing embedded software and programmable logic on board electronic devices. And over time, I gradually became a systems engineer, as I am now, as I took on wider responsibility for the design and ended up looking at more of the design of the overall solution and the algorithms and so on. And that includes how we implemented it in software and hardware, but also kind of the wider thing of how's it going to work and how we're going to achieve what we want to do. While I was at Leonardo, I became a chartered engineer, which remains to this day among my proudest achievements. It had been a goal for some time. I knew I wanted to do that. And in fact, now I am on a voluntary basis. I look at other people's applications and interview them for people who are applying for chartered engineer and incorporated engineer status with the IET, and that's really rewarding. And I also became a STEM ambassador at that time. So how did I get to there? I think it's useful to kind of just pause at this point. As ever, I have to give most of the credit to my technology teacher at school. She ran loads of extracurricular activities, still does, in fact, for people who are interested in science and technology and engineering. And so through school, I'd actually worked with Leonardo, or their sister company at the time, and so was able to secure summer placements with them, which I mentioned a moment ago. So that meant over the summers between my years at university, I was working at the site in Basildon for sort of 12, 14 weeks, doing real work on real projects, getting to know people, and that was immensely useful. It meant that when I started there in 2011 as a graduate, I'd kind of already got to know the place and like the place as well, and I knew I wanted to work there. And I'd encourage others to look at that as an option if you get the opportunity. And then, as I say, I was onto their graduate scheme before working there as a standard employee. So that's a good example of some of the things you can do now while you're at school, which I'll come on to more in a moment. So looking more broadly, why choose a career in STEM? Why have I chosen the career that I have? Well, starting with my personal view, I think working in the STEM sector and engineer, I speak from the perspective of an engineer, but it does apply more widely. As I mentioned at the start, you get to an almost unique balance of the technical and the creative. So you have to know your stuff, you have to know your science and maths, and you get to apply all of that on a daily basis, and that's great. But you also have to be really creative and really artistic in a way. You have to come up with new ways of doing things or think of problems in new ways. To get around existing challenges, you have to think creatively and laterally, and I really enjoy that. And that's, like I say, getting those two things together is not all jobs and industries offer that, and that's really great. I think as an engineer or a scientist, one is almost uniquely placed to make a real positive difference to society and to the world. And that's certainly something that motivates me, and I know motivates a lot of engineers and scientists. Also, it's a constantly evolving industry. There are always new technologies to learn. There's always new scientific questions to answer. On the whole, it's rewarding, it's value adding, and it's great fun. Look here at all the options of where a career in science or engineering could take you. These images are from the Royal Academy of Engineering's This is Engineering campaign, which showcases all of the different branches and career options. And the intent here is to show the huge diversity of career paths available to you in STEM. It's not the kind of stereotypical image that many people have of possibly the construction industry or, you know, guys with spanners. This is all, you might see this around, but this is not the reality. There's a really broad field, and there is something for everyone. The Institute of Physics on the right here has a good page on their website of where could physics take you as part of their Your Future with Physics series. And as you can see, you can do almost anything, not just in your traditional science or engineering sectors, as you might think of them. The key point here is that an education or a training in STEM or a STEM subject gives you a set of technical skills that can't really be obtained any other way. And that's always a useful weapon in your arsenal as you go through your career. It also gives you very good transferable skills, such as the ability to analyse different problems and think creatively, as I mentioned a moment ago. And this can and will take you places, including to other industries, not necessarily within STEM. Just a little point here that I know will interest some people. Now, I appreciate this isn't entirely a STEM careers fair, and I should really like to point out that all industries and sectors have their value. I'm merely here to talk about the STEM perspective. There are some real figures here from the Office of National Statistics and from the UK Commission for Employment and Skills. And what they show, without going into too much detail, on the left is that those who graduate from a STEM degree, and that can include apprentices, I should point out, you don't have to just do your degree at university, enjoy a higher than average employment rate than across all sectors. And the graph on the right shows us that the more you use your STEM skills in your job, the more you can expect to be paid throughout your career. And I know that's something that will interest a lot of people. So lastly, how can you get involved and how can you make this a reality? An important point to note is that there are lots of routes in, and there's a sort of map here, if you can call it that. Because of the skills shortage in the STEM sector, which is estimated to cost the country about £1.5 billion annually, I should add, employers are doing all they can to recruit the right talent and to make it as easy as possible for people who are interested to get involved and to come on board. The main decision you might have to make is between university, whether you go to university or whether you take an apprenticeship. But there are also other things to consider, such as work experience and placement opportunities. These are all really valuable. They help me, and they could certainly help you. Options and routes in include the university route with the option of placements, an apprenticeship, which you could start at the age of 16 or 18, or in between. There's a degree apprenticeship, so you do an apprenticeship and you graduate with a degree alongside. Now that's becoming an increasingly popular option because it gives you a best of both. Or you can take an apprenticeship and then go on to graduate from a degree after that. You don't have to do them at the same time. And of course, there's the option of taking a sandwich year or a year in industry or a gap year. So between school and university, there are schemes that allow you to do that, where you spend a year working in industry. And there's all number of scholarships and bursaries available to help with that. So these are just some of the things that are available to you if you're thinking of pursuing a career in STEM. And for those of you now at school, there are plenty of things you can be getting involved with. In terms of your options and your choices, you will almost certainly want to be taking maths and a relevant science at A level or equivalent for us if you want to do a STEM degree, and a further maths and or a second science or technology subject is highly desirable and may be required by some universities. And similar rules apply at GCSE, so you'll almost certainly be doing multiple sciences in some combination through your school anyway, but maths and science are key to underpin all of that. And then outside of that, there's a whole range of extracurricular activities. As I mentioned before, these helped me hugely. For example, I went on a number of small piece courses. I did a project with the what's now called Industrial Cadets while I was at school, and that was great, really great fun. There's a few icons here on the screen that represent some of those schemes you can do. This is a very small list, and you know, it changes day by day. So, you know, get out there, get on the internet, have a look, see what's available, ask your teacher. There's lots of opportunities. One thing I'd just like to say before I close is that CSES, the charity that I represent, is launching one such project over this summer, and we'll be contacting all the schools in the coming weeks to talk about that. And that's a hands-on project looking at environmental monitoring and pollution monitoring throughout Essex. So yeah, look out for that. And there's, like I say, plenty of other opportunities out there. So that's really it for me. Thank you for listening. There are some links there that may be useful. Otherwise, I think it's over to questions. Thank you, Peter.
Thank you, Adam, for doing that talk. That was very interesting. Hopefully, lots of people got lots of information from it. We know there's a delay on information coming through on the questions, but if you haven't got any, please put them in the chat now, and we can read them out to Adam and he can reply. Nothing's coming through at the moment, Adam. So just going back to the e2v and the apprenticeship program that you said just open. How many placements are there on average each year? I know it's varied the last couple.
Yes, that's a good question. I think obviously because of COVID, the numbers are slightly down at the moment. I think we're looking to recruit about 8 or 10, something like that this year. I don't have the exact figure to hand, but it's in that region. It's normally, I think, closer to double that, but yeah, you know,
but you're still managing to do about a 10. That's good.
Yeah.
So we just had a question in from Rosie. What has been your most exciting job?
Oh, okay. That's a great question. I think that actually that's hard to answer in a way, because nearly all of the jobs I've done have been exciting in one way or another. But I think, truthfully, the project that I'm working on right now, is probably my most exciting job, because every time you do a new project, you kind of obviously bring forward stuff you've learned from the previous project, and you think, oh, I can do it a bit better this time. This is my first project that I will have got to see everything through right from the start to the end, and in a you know, somewhat senior role. So and it's all about bringing a new product to market. So this is this radiotherapy application I was talking about earlier. It's about designing a new high power electronic system that will enable radiotherapy, you know, the future radiotherapy platforms to operate more reliably and more cheaply, and so on. And it's, you know, smaller, lighter, all these good things, new latest digital technology, all this stuff, and that's great. So I think that is the most exciting job, one, because of the experience it's given me in my role, but also because of the knowing what the end result will be and the benefit that will bring.
Excellent, thank you. So another question: what makes someone's CV application stand out?
I think so I spend as I've mentioned before, I spent some time in a voluntary capacity looking at various people's CVs and things for a number of different schemes and reasons. And I think there are two things that make a good CV stand out. I think one is obviously having good you know, good qualifications, and that doesn't necessarily need to be academic qualifications, but, you know, demonstrating that you've got that kind of underlying ability is important. But more important than that, I think what makes it really stand out is showing that commitment and that passion. So that could be through having done, you know, a lot of extracurricular activities, or it could be through you know, having shown a good progression in your career. I mean, there's lots of different ways you can do that, but really I think it's showing that you're really, you know, you're keen, you're interested, you've got the kind of, you know, the technical skill, but you've got that's rounded in a you know, wider set of skills and personality traits that will make you a good person to employ.
Well, thank you for that, Adam. There's no more questions coming through at the moment, so thank you very much for doing that talk. Just to let teachers who are online know, these talks have been recorded and will be available to view over the next couple of weeks. So if you've not been able to get students along today, there's still opportunities. If they have any questions, please send them into the STEM Hub and we can pass them on to Adam, who I'm sure will be very happy to reply
Absolutely.
to any of the questions. So if that's no more questions, and I'd like to call the meeting to an end. So thank you very much for attending, and thank you, Adam.
Thank you, Peter. Great to be here. Thanks.
Yep.